In this video, I'm going to be talking about saccharides and enzymes through the lens of lactose intolerance. So first, to start off, we're going to be talking about lactose intolerance, and when we think about lactose intolerance, we usually think about the subject of milk. So milk is the liquid that's secreted by mammary glands of female mammals to feed their young. And specifically, we're going to be talking about cow's milk. Cow's milk is made up, it's a homogeneous mixture. Well, actually, it's a heterogeneous mixture when it comes out of the cow, but then it's homogenized. So let me talk about the components of cow's milk, and then we'll talk about how it goes from being a heterogeneous mixture to a homogeneous mixture. So the primary component of cow's milk is water, and it's 87.7% water, and this component it helps with our hydration. So when we drink milk, its primary function is to keep us hydrated. The second most abundant substance in milk is lactose. This is the sugar that's present in milk. Sugar is a type of carbohydrate which provides us with energy. As you know, sugar tastes sweet, so milk does have a slightly sweet taste to it, and that is provided by the lactose within milk. Next, we have fat, and fat is about 3.4% of whole milk. Now, of course, there are different types of cow's milk that you can purchase at the store, and those have, if it has a lower percent of fat, say like 2% milk or skim milk, some of the fat has been removed. Fat also provides our bodies with energy. Now, the fat is what makes raw milk a heterogeneous mixture. So when milk comes out of a cow, there's a thick layer of fat at the top, and that layering effect makes the milk a heterogeneous mixture. So when we, as consumers, prefer our milk without a fat layer on top, we want homogenized milk. And homogenization is a process that takes that fat and makes it into tiny little pieces that is distributed throughout the milk. So it has that creamy texture, it gives it that creamy texture, and it doesn't have the layer of fat on top. The next component is protein. About 3.3% of milk is protein, and protein helps our body build and repair muscle. And the last component of cow's milk is minerals, the most notable being calcium. So minerals are metal ions, so calcium ions are present, and they help our body keep our teeth and bones strong. So we're going to be focusing on the lactose component of milk in today's lesson, and specifically we're going to be talking about sugars, which to a chemist are known as saccharides. So there are different kinds of saccharides, the first being a monosaccharide, and these are the most simple forms of sugars or carbohydrates. They contain a single carbon ring called a saccharide. So some common monosaccharides you've probably heard of are glucose, fructose, and galactose. So the way that these Lewis structures are drawn are a little bit different than we've seen before. When we see these rings, so first of all, we've seen carbon rings previously in our smelling lab, and here some of the carbons are left out, so and hydrogens as well. So whenever we see a corner like that, there's a carbon there. It just simplifies the drawings when we don't have to draw all of the little letters. So they have a carbon here, a carbon here, a carbon here, and a carbon here. Now you will notice in all of these rings that there is an oxygen in addition to the carbons within the ring. And that is a component that makes a monosaccharide. So it's a carbon ring and there's an oxygen within the ring. Now some of the rings you'll notice, like glucose and galactose, have 5 carbons and 1 oxygen. Fructose has 4 carbons and 1 oxygen. You'll also notice that there are some similar components within these monosaccharides. All of them have the CH2OH directly to the left of the O in the ring. You'll also notice that they have some OHs coming off of various places in the ring. And so that is what the placement of those OHs, as well as the number of carbons, is what makes each monosaccharide unique from the others. Now, these monosaccharides can bond together to form disaccharides. So disaccharides are formed when two monosaccharides bond together with an oxygen atom between them, and this oxygen atom between them is known as a glycosidic link. So this is what some common disaccharides look like. The most common being sucrose, which is table sugar. So sucrose is a disaccharide made from a glucose ring and a fructose ring bonded together with this oxygen atom in the middle. That's known as a glycosidic link or a glycosidic bond. We're also going to be looking at the disaccharide lactose. So this is the sugar that's in milk. And this is formed from the monosaccharide galactose bonding with a glycosidic link to glucose. And that glycosidic link is that oxygen between them. So our bodies have a number of molecules within them called enzymes, and these help specific chemical reactions occur. There's a lot of chemical reactions that are very important to our bodies that will only occur with the special help of enzymes. So enzymes are incredibly important to our bodies in order for them to function. There's one class of enzymes that are found in our digestive system, and what they do is they attach to disaccharides and they break that glycosidic bond to release the two monosaccharides. And that is essential for the digestion of disaccharides. So a couple common enzymes that serve this function in our body. One is called Sucrase. So you may notice, I forgot to mention actually, when we look at the name of saccharides, did you notice that they all end in ose? That is key to the naming of a saccharide. So you know that you're dealing with a saccharide or a sugar if the name ends in OSE. Now the enzymes in our body, they end with ASE. So sucrase is the enzyme that breaks up sucrose. So what sucrase does is it takes the sucrose disaccharide, the enzyme attaches to, it's a big complex molecule, and attaches to the sucrose molecule, and it breaks that glycosidic bond in between the two monosaccharides, and it releases glucose and fructose. And our body, it can't digest disaccharides because they're too big to go through the lining of our digestive system into the bloodstream. It needs to be broken down into smaller molecules. Glucose and fructose, the monosaccharides, are small enough for our body to absorb them and use it in our bloodstream. Lactase is the enzyme that breaks apart lactose. So lactose is made from galactose and glucose. When lactase attaches to lactose, it breaks it into those two monosaccharides, and our body absorbs the galactose and the glucose. So lactose intolerance comes about when our bodies don't have enough lactase. So in order for disaccharides to be absorbed into our bloodstream, they must be broken down into monosaccharides by enzymes. Now each enzyme is specific to the disaccharide it breaks down. So sucrase can only break down sucrose, just like lactase can only break down lactose. And any disaccharides that aren't broken down, they will go into our digestive system further down into the lower digestive system, and it's going to feed the bacteria that live there. So people who do not have enough lactase or don't have any lactase, the lactose passes through their upper intestinal system and goes to the lower intestinal system where there's bacteria that feed on that lactose. And it's essentially a fermentation, which we're going to be talking about in a later video. So the fermentation often produces gases. So you get a lot of bloating and other types of terrible symptoms that come from lactose intolerance, because that is a result of the fermentation that's happening in those lower intestinal areas. So you're going to be watching another video and reading a little bit about how lactase can be used to make lactose-free milk, because a lot of people who have lactose intolerance, which is about half the world, they still like to have milk. So there's ways that we can produce lactose-free milk.